These are like, and I met you when I was 29 years old, and you said Saturn Return. You said, and I didn't listen. The music business is pain, misery, and conflict.
It is.
Here we are, all these years later.
It's true. Brutal.
It's true, but it's the joyful noise. Still.
It's a joyful noise. That's why musicians lose their mind, because the highs are so high, and the lows are so low, and there's no middle ground ever.
It's really true.
It's really true. There's not a middle, and if it's a middle ground, you're a boring player. You got nothing to say.
In other words,
if you're a good musician, you're in trouble.
Well, you said, you told all of us back then, if you don't have to do this, just don't do it.
I've just been around a long time, and 50 years of failure will add up to something. So they all ask, and I said, man, y'all quit unless you got a gun at your back. There has to be a gun at your back. And you're born to do this. I've always been a shy accountant. And, it's another person comes out. And I'm very introverted, and being on stage, I guess I've done close to 9,000 gigs, and
wow.
I'm still an introvert every time I go on stage.
How do you feel now when you go on stage compared to back in the early times?
Early days.
What have you learned that makes it different now?
Just older. Just like Charles Barkley said, he said, man, I work out all the time and I just get tired. No muscle development, although he's lost 100,000 pounds. Right. But,
well, the first day we ate together, I was 29 and I just met you, and we went to this restaurant, and after we paid our bill and we walked out on the sidewalk, you stood on one foot and did like a ballerina, and stood right on the curb, and stood on one foot, and you were perfectly still, and I thought you'd lost your mind. So I kept staring at you. I kept staring, and then I said, "What was that?" And you said, "It's Platorum."
Right.
Now, that was the beginning, kind of our kind of mental relationship. Right. What is Platorum?
Platorum is given attention to something you've seen, but you've never seen it in that light before. I mean, you take a telephone pole and you think it's a telephone pole, but no, it is not a telephone pole. Vinyl is in a constant state of motion.
Right.
You see vinyl that's moving. It is insane how many items are in that vinyl.
Right.
It's flying. There's so much space and time meeting together to make that in the now.
But when you think about that in terms of music, I'm just talking about for people that haven't heard these ideas. You got the movie coming out, which is, basically Frightened, the musical madness of Col Bruce Hampton. And in that movie, one of the things that's so valuable about it, and people will watch it and love it, but I think one of the great things about it is that we all get to talk about these weird things about music in ways that we would have never talked about them if we hadn't met you. And
you might have found them.
Might have found them. And you say that, but the truth of the matter is that in my mind, at least for me, I can speak for me, I was a C-level folk grass banjo player, playing a 5-string banjo, and to me, you gave me permission to be a musician on the banjo and not just a bluegrass banjo player. In other words, you kind of forced me to be myself on the banjo. I guess my question is that when it comes to Platorum, and I've got the other ones written down that we both came up with in a restaurant one time. Okay, here are the parts of music. Butt and face. What's that?
All right. Butt is playing out of your butt. Get your butt involved. I mean, when James Brown comes out, his butt's moving.
In other words, that's a good thing. In other words, it's a vulnerability.
It's actually the first chakra, which you need in everything to get the primal going. You don't have to get the primal going, but understand it's there. Be aware of it.
It's who you really are.
And to do it all night sort of becomes stupid to me. I want to hear other parts. I mean, I love feminine music. I don't like masculine, in-your-face music. Really never have. I like the feminine side of music, but I understand you have to have the primal to make it move. But to do it all night and do it every song, that doesn't do it for me. That's just butt level consciousness.
Okay, butt level consciousness. And then what's face? Then?
Face is presenting your facade.
Okay.
I mean, you come out with a lot of face. So
that's kind of the look at me and.
Yeah, look at me. Here's my facade, but it's not you.
Look what I pulled off.
Well, the problem with all music, and especially marketing, you find your little niche in something. I mean, I want to go. There's nothing more disgusting than going seeing a show with one of the greats. Okay, but you know what's going to happen. Right. And you're going to applaud, and you're going to pay $88.52, and you're going to pay $13 for parking, and you know what's going to happen. He's going to be great.
Yeah.
And he'll be great next year, and she'll be great the next year, and that's going to. Why not come out and dribble a basketball in the middle, or just put another color to it? I mean, music is color. That's all I see it as, color. So is food, obviously, but you know, I mean, it's all music is food.
Right.
And music to eat. That's, you know, it's
which is why we used to have, I guess, in the early days of Aquarium Rescue Unit, Sarah Brown the Godhead or whoever would come and either eat cereal while we played or read the newspaper.
I have no explanation for almost anything, so definitely not no explanation for that.
What is collapsing into place? Because you talk about that in the movie.
Yeah.
You talk about not having a master plan, that you've never really had a master plan.
No, I never have. The symphonies get together and they rehearse, and Green Bay gets together, and that's discipline, and armies get together, and they all rehearse.
Right.
And I think rehearsal is fine, but how do you know how you're going to feel when that C minor note comes at 8:45 tonight and you're rehearsing at 2:15? Why not leave it open to take a packet of ink and put it on an ironing board? I mean, why can't that possibly happen? Or bring in 13 Portuguese and have them, once again, have napkins again. I mean, to leave it open to possibility is what I'm saying. I mean, if you're not on, then go ahead and play the C minor. Everybody do it together.
If you're not on.
If you're not on, that's what face is basically when you're having a bad night, you go back and rely on stuff.
Right.
But when you're having an inspirational night and stuff is flowing and you're not doing anything and it's moving, then take that ink and, you know, do items with it. Put some stuff.
Go into areas.
Go into areas. Have you ever driven down the street and there's always 8 people over there in an area and they all have hats on? You go, where does he live? And you go by them and you go, God, they're area workers. And
I'm just really serious. Why don't more people? I'm really wanted to ask this. Why don't more people take more risk in a craft that really lends itself to the beauty of risk taking?
It should be risk taking.
Is it the business that's killed that?
Well, unfortunately, the business is just, you know, it's the music business now. And, you know, when we were growing up, we didn't have anything to do. There were 3 channels on the TV, and music, you know, was in every household, so you saw people learning their craft. Especially when I was growing up, man, I'd go real young, 15 or 16. Everybody there had tone and time, and they were great at their instrument. They at least had the face of it. But in every genre of music, they were great players.
Right.
And they would take risk. And it seemed like risk-taking became machine-like from about 88 on, you know, or I don't think I bought 3 records after 74. All the stuff I listened to is from 1912 to, 73, 74.
Well, I admit that I was a late bloomer when I came into the Aquarium Rescue Unit. I was a late bloomer musically. I'd been doing a bluegrass radio show, and but I'd never played with an electric bass player.
No joke, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
I'd never played with a drummer.
Well,
so here I was all of a sudden standing beside you who wasn't playing a mandolin. Really, it was an electric thing.
It was a mandocello, actually.
Exactly, kind of a mandocello. And then you got Jimmy and Charlie Williams, O'Teal on electric bass, Sipe on drums, Count Mbutu later on joined us. And at that particular point in time, I remember just seeing for the first time my first hippies. The Witches and the Hippies were the two people that came in, and me as a sheltered, recovering Southern Baptist guy who was trying to survive my conservative religious background, those were the two groups of people that would come to see us play for 89 cents at the Point. Now my question to you is this. What is a hippie? And are you a hippie? Am I a hippie? What?
I never had.
And did the Grateful Dead world? Of course, you and Pigpen were friends, and you knew the Grateful Dead. And is that Grateful Dead world lend itself to a more of a risk-taking type of music?
They certainly took some risks.
Because they did.
Yeah, they
improvised.
took some risks, man. I mean, Jimmy Herring's the one who's really turned me on to them. I mean, I've only saw him when I played with him in the 60s, and we went to see him out west one day, this was 20 years ago. I mean, none of us knew him. And I talked to Pigpen. It was all about blues, though.
Right.
You know, I mean, we were this close, me and Bob Hope and Pigpen.
But y'all were roommates at one point, years ago.
No, we weren't ever roommates, but he was still in the band. But, I mean, I talked to him quite a bit.
And you played with Bill.
And I've known Bill a long time, too.
Right.
Yeah.
But what is your take on that role, their improvisational tendencies, and the spawning of the jam band scene? Because the new jam band scene was kind of spawned off the Horde tour.
On some level. I mean, the people are already doing it.
There were people doing it, but I'm saying to bring in bluegrass elements and singer-songwriter elements and the roots elements, it spawned it's almost like the jam band scene grew legs at that point. Nobody called it jam band. They called it the Grateful Dead, until that point.
It's funny. I mean, it's funny. Jimmy played me all these compositions that I'd never heard from Garcia that were just absolutely beautiful. And I didn't, I never, like I said, I never had any records 73, 74. I'd be listening to Earl Scruggs and the Louvin Brothers and Muddy and Wolf and Robert Johnson and
Bobby Bland,
Son House, Bobby Bland, B.B., Albert Freddie. That was a bag, and Train and Sun Ra and Albert Eiler and Ornette Coleman, and some neoclassical music too. But I was never, hardly any bands that started after 70. I didn't know them. I just didn't know much about them. I mean, but they were so popular, and they took jazz, blues, they took American music and stretched it.
Yeah.
And they took tons of risk, and it was time to take risk. And it's time for some young man to step up and take risk. I think there's so much diversion that people don't dedicate themselves to music. They might dedicate themselves to the instrument, but not to the flow of music. And it's I've gone around and, like I say, these are all invalid opinions. I don't know anything. It's just invalid opinions. But I'll go speak at schools, and they think Jimi Hendrix started the blues, and there's a lot more depth to it. And he would say the same thing. There's worlds there. And it's so sad to me that kids with some eagerness don't know the world of music.
Right, they gravitate towards the person that got the attention first.
Attention first, yeah.
Right, and they don't equate that. They equate that attention and fame with craft.
Yeah.
It's almost like he gets that attention,
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know what a hippie is. I had a flat top during that era and had an H carved in my head.
That's one of the reason I asked the question is that I feel that that world gave you a place, though, for you to crank back up in the late 80s.
It really did, yeah.
It really did, and I'm just, with Widespread, it just started when we were out there. Fish was drawing 30 people in Athens at one time.
Yeah,
we saw them under that light bulb.
That's how it all started. Everybody got together and said, how do we draw more people? And we said, let's do a whole tour. and will draw people. And
take everybody's audiences.
You know what's great about all those bands? They would still be doing it if they were making $200 a night. Right. They all have the intention, and they all have the essence. Right. And they would not, you know, it wouldn't matter to them. It's good that they have hit a market. It's good they make bread, and they've helped so many people. You know, I would certainly not have a viable living at all if they hadn't have come along. I mean, the paradigms had shifted, and you know, I basically, you know, Train and McCoy, that's the stuff that I was listening to in the early 60s. It was improvisation, and then probably Fats Waller invented improvisation. I mean, it was probably done in 20 million years ago, but in modern day, it probably could be traced back to his band. And Louie and Bix Beiderbecke, and, you know, and Chick Webb, for that matter, in 36, 37, they were doing some incredible improvisation. Right. And when I speak improvisation, the entire group would listen harmonically and rhythmically. I'm not talking about the rhythm section staying in 4/4 and a couple guys play pentatonic for 6 hours. They would actually be 10 compositions within 20 minutes, and they would all hit on it like that. Like a psychic movement. And that's that
movement. Invisible whip thing you talked about.
Invisible, it's Roland Kirk,
Can you explain the invisible? I mean, I know
No, that came from Roland Kirk, but it's the invisible thing that happens, and I mean, you know.
Is it when you become bigger than the sum total of your parts, and everybody's listening?
Everybody should listen, and no one does. I mean, it's so few. The players are a dime a dozen. They're great now. Everybody's a good player, but then you listen for that thing called essence. You know, are they playing themselves? And by God, no, they're not. Are they listening? No, they're not.
In other words, they're replicating their heroes.
Right.
And they're playing what they think guitar should sound like.
Or what they think people want to hear.
Or what,
instead of being, you know, put the good, the bad, and the ugly in it. I want to hear ugly. I want to hear good. I want to hear great. I want to hear bad. I want to hear below.
What is below?
Below's when you're broken.
These are terms that I've been saying for...
no explanation of anything, but...
below.
It's going
It's putting a napkin in your mouth and...
That's part of it. Just going below is playing the music on another level. Below the level you should be playing. Does it include
a possibility of embarrassment?
Yeah, you need to be embarrassed. And it's absolutely, what's the word I'm searching?
Dignified?
No dignity.
Undignified.
Undignified, and there's another word too.
Right.
But that undignified.
Right.
To be completely undignified.
Right.
To take it where it shouldn't go.
Right.
And
in your mind, that's important because
critical.
It keeps the ego in check.
Well, it keeps the feminine and the male poles balanced. You know, if you're all masculine and you're playing here, you can't go anywhere. There's nowhere to go. You bring it here, and actually silence is the music. It's never the notes. Right. It's always the silence that puts the mew in the sick. You know, it makes it music. I mean, you can sit there and play notes all day, and there's 1,000 good players.
But you know what? Why do people, in your mind, okay, it seems like every 5 years you retool and you love to configure another band.
You know,
bands don't break
anything.
Up to you. You've
do
only
anything.
had one band.
Yeah, it's only one band, and all I want to do is one song.
It's one band with different people for years, and you've been doing one song many different ways.
Yeah, many different ways.
And the film lays that out really well. But my question is, I guess, as having been in one of the bands, what would you say are just the main things that you would tell musicians in order to be part of a really, really good band?
I try
and I don't even like to say the word good, but...
Right. I try never to tell anybody anything. But if it goes a year and they're not in the program, you know, I go, man, you got to listen more. And generally, you got to play softer. And listen. And not only listen, be ready when that guy throws the ball on a 3-man break in basketball. Anticipation is a critical thing. It's not just sitting there and play your parts. Anticipate what's going to happen. Anticipate what color's coming, what chord's coming, or if it's going to sync. If you're going to take, all of a sudden there's you got an eraser and you got 18 erasers, and then you got to get down on the ground and you know about erasing.
Right.
But just anticipation is a critical thing of truly improvising.
Right.
And most people just play their parts and they're skilled. There's so many skilled players today. It's just frightening, man.
But the way you describe the two parts of a player is their release and their recovery. What's release?
Release is hopefully taking the emotional cord and putting it out and letting go of yourself.
And what's recovery?
Recovery is being able to come back and join the group as they're going in some direction, 100 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour.
And you step
but
in
always
line.
be listening.
Right.
Yeah.
Now we came up with, you told me this a long time ago in a restaurant, that tone, these are the 4 T's.
Right.
Time.
Right.
Which is meter, being able to play in time. Tone. Taste.
Or the lack of.
Or the lack of. But taste, nonetheless. Even bad taste.
Even bad taste.
All taste.
Well, make sure the notes are wrong if you're going to do them.
In other words, really good bad taste.
Really good bad taste. Repeat them 3 times, and if they are there, it'll happen.
Okay, then the 4th T is threat of vomit.
Yes, the threat. You don't have to do it, but it can overtake.
In other words, just to where it's almost like
86.73% of life is not chaos. And I use the word vomit, which is very crude and insensitive, which is 13.2795, is chaos. They brought it down now to a science. Life is 13% chaos. And the music should never force chaos, never force it. It's not going to work. And it really sounds stupid. If you force chaos, it's dumb as
in other words, it's as silly as
anything. But when everybody feels it and it can take over, go for it. Because there's no more joy when chaos comes, if it's real. And you better be real, because it'll slap you in the face harder than anything. I mean, it'll knock you down.
And what a lot of people don't realize that haven't played with you or really know you is you take that chaotic part. A lot of people think it's silly. It's not silly.
It's not silly at all. It's a serious part of the music. It's what's really going on. It says everything. It speaks volumes, or it says nothing. And that's basically what I'm trying to do, is say nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, no thingness.
No thingness. Yeah, no thing, and sometimes nothing.
Right.
But it's crucial that element can happen. But you better have 4 or 5, 10 players that understand it, the seriousness of it.
Now, in relationship to those tone, time, taste, threat of vomit, I'm going to just say some artists that I know you love, and I just want you to give me 1 or 2 word impressions of when I say their name. In relationship to those qualities, Sun Ra.
Sun Ra, I mean, he was one of the great composers ever.
Changed my life when we went to see him together.
When I was 13, I first heard him, and he didn't change it. He let me know it was okay. I had no idea that life was okay till I first heard Sun, and I can't thank him enough for being such an inspiration. And he's an outspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bobby Bland.
Best singer alive. And inspiration also.
Wayne Bennett.
Wayne Bennett was my dad. He was spiritual father, you might say, the guitar player for Bobby Bland. And we talked every day for 3 years till he passed in '92. And
gosh, you used to describe him as he had an amp and a 1/4-inch cord.
That was it.
That was it.
Nobody
and the
better. And Jabbo Starks, who played with everybody, said ain't nobody better than Wayne Bennett. Nobody knows Wayne Bennett.
Wow.
But it's funny, Wayne was going to make an album with, he was trying to get, Capricorn had said okay, And Derek was going to do it, and Aretha Franklin and Eddie Bow, and he was getting these and the Monsters to come and do an album. And he passed away. It was never done. And he said, boy, I'm coming up there to play with that little toe-headed boy. Is he ready for me? How old is it, 13? All right, bring him on.
I want to get that
toe-headed boy up there.
Talking about Derek?
Yeah. Little toe-headed
Well, talk
boy.
about Derek.
Not much you can say.
He's just a beautiful.
Yeah.
I remember seeing him with you when he was 12.
Yeah.
Just.
I think I met him
and he was reading
10.
Krishnamurti by the time he was 14.
He was about 14, yeah.
Yeah, I was just like.
He wanted books, and he wanted to know what I read, and I said, man, you really shouldn't know what I read.
You shouldn't know.
But he surpassed me in reading all the books by 16.
Wow.
And, he said the best thing I've ever heard in music. On his 16th birthday, we went out, and I said, it's time for you to have some albums. So we went out and bought some adventurous music. And we bought Love Supreme, and he played that, and you could just tell his instincts and emotion just lit up. And he said probably the best line I've ever heard about music. 3 hours after he heard it, he went, man, that record still sounds great.
Wow.
And you don't hear that very much.
Wow.
And I'd love to hear him.
That's a great
Robbie
compliment.
Coltrane and him are very good friends. I'd love those two to do a record together, although they might have by now.
Yeah, man. Bill Monroe. I'm being selfish, but.
No, you're talking of all the masters, he started it.
Brave and crazy and wonderful.
Oh, he was completely crazy, he had to be,
Yeah.
Bluegrass is not as crazy as blues, but it's second.
Earl Scruggs.
The master. I was talking to O'Teal today, and he might be the greatest string player ever. And I had really never heard him. I'd only heard him on Beverly Hillbillies or something.
Right.
And Ewer Bela told me about him in early '90. He said, go listen to something. And I could not believe that was done on the banjo, and I could not believe his whole thing.
There's no words.
I mean, he might be the greatest string player ever, in all seriousness.
And now it's great to watch O'Teal. I gave him a banjo lesson the other night, and he really is.
He's eating with it, and he found his instrument.
He loves it more than anything.
You know what's funny? When I hired him, he played drums. I had no idea he played bass. And Ricky was playing bass, and we had a piano player. And
so he ended up a bass
20
player
years
by
old,
mistake,
21, and so Ricky couldn't make a gig, and he played bass. Man, what are you doing?
Yeah,
it was unbelievable.
I know.
It wasn't developed, but 2 more years he had it. But you could see that you can't be doing that. You can't. It's so funny, and we would be playing at Little 5 Points. Probably you were in the group by then. And all these old rockers would come, and I won't mention names, but they're from big names from the 80s, and they would all come, and they go, tell that guy he's playing too much. He's overplaying. And I said, man, no, he's not. He plays a lot, but the song is always there.
Right.
And you sing to the bass, and he's always easiest person I've ever had to play with to sing.
Yeah.
Because there's melody going, there's rhythm going. If you get lost ever, then he's going to be there with one of them. If you can't sing
with him putting the bottom down, you go somewhere else. Go to Waffle House or whatever.
And now he's a little bit older and plays less, it doesn't matter. It was still always the same to me.
Yeah, it's incredible.
He always had the musicality going.
Yeah. Hubert Sumlin.
My preacher, my hero since I was 13, 14 years old, and Hubert just died 2 months ago. And I tell you, it's probably the greatest week of my life. We went out with him for 8 days, and he never slept, and he never quit talking. But it didn't matter. 4 o'clock in the morning, so we were asking him, after the 3rd day in, we had to protect him from everything we felt. Just people, he was a Beatle, and after the 3rd day, we went, what who's the best guitar player you know? Because, I mean, this is Hendrix's favorite. This is everybody's favorite. I mean, talking about Muddy and Wolf, you know, just you start crying. It's like biblical, you know, the stuff he's telling you. And just story after story for hour after hour. And we were just all eating it like 12-year-old kids. And he goes, my brother Hank was the best that ever lived, but he was too shamefaced to go outside.
You didn't even know that? He had a brother?
Hank, nobody knew him. And he said, he was the best that ever lived, but he was too shamefaced.
Shamefaced.
Which I still don't want to know the definition of that. So I got sick one day, and I told Wolf that my brother's going to play. And he said, I'd been drinking. Wolf knew it, so he put 5 police dogs around the house, and I couldn't leave. He said, I've been poisoned 3 times in Canada. Oh, and at the end of it, after the 8 days, me and Tyler were standing there, and everything had been jovial and wonderful vibes and just joy all the time. He turned to us and goes, you boys ready to go to Crossroads and get your stuff? And we went, whoa. And we said, no, and he meant it. And we went, I love Mythocracy, but you know,
Mythocracy?
Me and Tyler went, boom.
Wow.
Yeah,
man.
we ran, and it was he was serious.
Wow. Whew. Tell me what your definition of respect is. You say it's
just a horrible thing, you know. I mean, it goes back to the ego once again. I mean, respect. I mean, you respect people. You know, you let them
just
in
like
traffic,
you were talking about
nice
him.
to them and
it's
all
a different
that,
thing, though. When
I don't.
you call it an evil that
thing.
corrodes the mind, or something like.
I'm not going to say it, but it's just. It's got its place for somebody who needs it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's
And then I have to ask you, because you know, for a long time when you would stay at the house, I remember for a long time this guy would call up and you'd say, he called my house. You'd say, if Frank calls, get me to the phone. This was like in 1988. Then years later, I asked you how your friend Frank was doing, and you said he's sick. And then years after that, you said my friend Frank died. And then literally that day in Creative Loafing, I saw that Frank Zappa had died, and I had talked to him 3 or 4 times on the phone when he'd call you and didn't know it was him. And I never really even knew y'all were friends until the movie came out, which I was involved in a little. But just tell me about how he influenced you and just your impressions of Frank Zappa.
No, like you heard the meet. We were sitting there, me and Harold, and we were talking about smart music one morning. You know?
And this is where
we were talking about composers, and you know we were still. I was a teenager. Harold was 22 or 23, I guess. We were at the Dugout on Bleecker Street.
In New York?
And across the street was the Garrick Theater, and Frank worked there every night, and he'd bring in Hendrix, Clapton, everybody, every night. I mean, he had Theodore Bacall one night with Richie Havens, you know, just on and on. It was $2 or $3 to get in, and the band was about 8 pieces, and he walked in pajamas and pajama hat, and look, I had never seen long hair. You know, I didn't know what it was. I was from conservative Atlanta, Georgia at the time, and me and Harold sort of spooked by the guy, but we saw an intriguing weirdness to him. And we were talking about Penderecki, and he came over and seemed like a very nice cat.
Penderecki, the classical artist,
Polish composer who had just, you know, floored me and Harold 2 years before we had just started listening to his stuff. And he was across the street at the Garrick Theater, and he said, y'all come over, and after the shows, we would hang out all night till about 5 or 6 in the morning and just really go crazy. And there was a woman upstairs who would take the broom and hammer it. She would get so mad. Frank lived on St. Charles, and around the corner was Ornette Coleman. He was on Prince Street. And, you know, we'd walk every day, and, you know, you go back there and think, and there's Muddy Waters walking down the street, Charlie Mingus, you know, and you see all these, Jim Hall, just great. And Frank, and Frank had no draw, 200-300 people a night at most trying to build his business. And the thing I learned from him was just there is a business to it, which I've never taken serious. I've never had great ambition, always like aspiration, and I like to.
What in your mind is the difference between ambition and aspiration?
Money and making stuff happen, creation.
Right.
One of them's money and one of them's creation.
In other words, one's driven by money and one's driven by
you got to stay out there and you got to play the game a little bit. And if you're out there, even in the minor leagues, you're a politician, and 20% of the people aren't going to like you, and you hope 80% do like you, no matter what you do. I mean, it's just phenomenal to me that someone won't like Train, or I can't, or Chuck Berry for that matter.
Has it always been like that? Because I know I'm amazed at what people like. Has it always been? Were you amazed at what people liked in the '60s?
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed.
No.
I really
you
wonder.
learn to sell yourself better, but music's at the lowest ebb ever, and it's what really
Why
makes.
do you think that is? Is it just the economy?
No,
or is it more
no.
Is it that there's more people?
Technology, like I was saying,
there's things
you had
competing
less to
for
do.
people's attention.
There's things competing, and people really don't know how to decipher or dig deep into something. And
in other words, they can't keep their attention on something long enough
not focused
to really
enough,
enjoy
it seems like. And you know what was exciting to me in the 60s, 70s would always be somewhere and would talk music with people. And when you play gigs, you don't go around and people talk music, do you? None of them. I mean, the thrill of my life was going to go talk with Vassar Clements and sit there like a 12-year-old again and learn everything,
And hear stories.
That's all I wanted to hear. It was so wonderful. And just, but
which is, by the way, what I love about the movie. The movie is, I mean, it's got all the great people. It's got great people in it, and the stars are in it. Dave Matthews, Billy Bob Thornton. It covers the whole spectrum of, Widespread Fish. Mike Gordon's in it. It's got the, star power, whatever you want to call it. But the bottom line to me is that I think it's going to be a great way for a lot of people to get back into that conversation that they've gotten out of. Because everybody's so busy running their website, booking gigs, and everybody's doing their own thing. It seems like the joy of the craft of live entertainment has gone to the side.
Just bizarre to me.
What happened?
I don't know. But technology, I guess, so much to do is just so much influence. The internet, I mean, it's what a hammer it is. It's incredible, and it's also horrible. I mean, especially I never get on it much, but I see what they say on the blogs about the young bands. It's just like, that's so mean-spirited, man, and just, that blows my mind. I mean, everybody's a critic now.
You wonder why anybody stays in the business.
And it's just like being in Star Magazine. They just slam them, and they're out. No one knows how hard and brutal this business is. Just to go to a gig is impossible. You got 4 different brains. You're trying to get it to one brain.
You're starting a new job every day.
You're starting a new job every day.
Yeah, you're going and getting to know people you've never met.
And as Elvin Jones says, play every job like it's your last.
Right.
But I want to get back to Frank for 1 second.
Sorry, I derailed you.
No, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, just to learn from him. We were a teenager, and such a nice guy. This before he was swamped years later. And we were at Moon's birth, and she was born in New York
Moon's
City.
Birth.
Yeah,
I see.
I've never met Moon. I don't know her, but we were at her birth, and there was a girl. This was just one of life-changing events, and a hospital like 33rd Street, New York City, or something. It was 4 in the morning, 6 in the morning. I'm hazy about it, but he's having a daughter being born, and there's a little girl crying like 20 feet away. And instead of going to the hospital, he runs out there and talks to this little girl in the park and goes, "Are you okay?" She's like 18, 20 years old. And she goes, "Yes." He said, "Have a couple tickets to my show. You need any money?" And what character, man. And then we would go out at night and we would go to shows like to be Loudon Wainwright, and nobody would be in there, and Frank's on the guest list, +3 or something. And they go, "You're not on the guest list." And he goes, "Okay, I'll pay." You know, you don't see that from a superstar, man. You don't see that today. You don't see the egolessness of it, and I was primarily interested in the chaos.
And in the film, you say he kind of showed you the ropes of the music.
Yeah, the business and the spirituality of it.
Because you did a cameo on.
Was it called Lumpy Gravy? And we're on it for the money, yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't like to go around and say, hey, I'm personal friends with Bob Hope.
Right.
You know?
Me and Bob Hope. Here's me and here's Bob Hope. We're tight.
We're Jimmy Durante and I, just like this.
No.
You know, I mean, he's just a regular cat, and everybody asks, you know, how insane he was. I mean, he was not just the straightest cat I ever met. Just right down the field, you know. And boy, what did he do, 51, 52 albums? That he, you know, that's too many.
Well, you know, speaking about that kind of character and everything, one time, because I have to, you know, one time you said the funniest thing, and that is the church would work if they'd let it.
If they'd let it. That's just the same thing
I'm
as
just
music
curious
could work
with all
too.
that's going on with religion now, and it's come back, and it seems like we're back in the 80s all over again. Not to be political, but what is your take on that? I mean, on, you know, being good or morality or whatever.
I just wish you could go to church and, you know, put the homeless in it, make it a church, make it brotherhood. Let's put the spirituality back in it, you know. Help somebody out, you know. There's a lot of people down on their luck. Just don't think in the sense that it all has to be money or well-clothed. Helps, you know, there's people starving. There's no reason for that. We have a lot here.
We really do.
And just, I've been to a couple churches I love, and not much was said.
Right.
You know, it was just, you could feel the spirit of, but I mean, you should go to church every day and every hour, you know, just let people in traffic, over tip, you know, whatever it takes. I mean, we all have egos, and we certainly have our tired, horrible moments.
And as you say, you say, I'm a dirty, rotten scoundrel.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you always clarify that, you know,
everybody is.
Everybody's a dirty, rotten scoundrel.
We all are.
And whatever, but at the same time.
Make it, you know, try to make it as dirty and rotten as possible.
Well, speaking of our Lord and Savior, tell me about Joe Zambie.
He's the miracle man. He's the fastest man in the world backwards. And I'll never forget the day you got in. You know what the great thing about our church is? We don't want any members.
No.
We don't want any members.
We'll give you money back.
We'll give you money to not belong.
No, we'll give you money back.
And we love our leader, but there's only 4. I don't know how many people in the church, 4 or 5 maybe.
Yeah.
But the day you got hit with it was electricity went through you. I've never. I saw a true religious miracle when you.
I about fainted.
Yeah, you almost fainted.
Right.
You saw his feet.
I went offline for about 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And then was able to come back online. But I mean,
you were gone. It hit you. I saw it hit you. It hit me the same way.
I've been
40
asked
years
for
ago.
years because I'm the more mouthy of your people that have played with you. I'm probably the most mouthy. But I get asked a lot, what is Zambie? And
well, everything's nonsense. And Zambie is nonsense, except it's
no-thingness personified through the Chauncey Gardner of the modern day world.
He might not even, I mean, I don't think he's a person either. It's just, it's an energy field, and if it hits you, I tell you this, the churches, I'd like to go when there's joy all the time. It's always guilt and just something I don't understand. I like joy. I mean, none of us are happy. We're in this body, your teeth decay, your hair falls out.
Yeah, men grow.
You know, you get clarity and you get old.
Boobs, women grow beards.
You know, that's what happens at 50.
You always say that men grow boobs, women grow beards. Then you have to die. It's so stupid. Why do you have to die?
Just dumb. I mean, I've been in this thing, 49 years now, and I finally learned how to hold the pick. I mean, you know, I got to that point, and now it's just starting to open up, you know, the whole game of it. And, you know, once again, I'm not good enough to be humble. I say that for Mother Teresa, Joe Zambie, and probably Johnny Cash. You know?
Right.
I know church ought to be a healing thing to me, and you know.
Well, one of the other things that really has affected your life, and I asked you this the other day, just when we talked on the telephone, but the first time I met you, and this has happened to a lot of people, you walked up to me and you said you knew I was born February 7th, and then you said, and somebody else in your family's born on that day as well. And that freaked me out because I was born on my father's birthday.
Right.
So then over time, you kind of taught me to look at people's faces and do all these things because you were so good at guessing their birthday. My question is this: astrology. You say it really has affected on some.
It's just
what
a
is
science,
it to you?
and I don't use it as a parlor game. I knew.
And you don't read your. I mean, you don't look at your horoscope to find out what kind of day you're going to have or whatever.
No, I don't know. It's everything has depth to it. Bluegrass blues. There's always an underbelly.
There's a
car
pattern.
Repair.
The math's running through it.
I mean, it's a science. It's no big deal. I don't believe in it. You know. Hopefully I feel things and don't believe anything. That's the mind, and that only gets you in trouble, man. Right. I mean, every war is on a religion. 90% of them. What
about the mind? How do you deal with? You have to have dealt with high emotions, and as the movie points out, your origin itself is enough to drive most people crazy.
Oh, it is driving
Having
me
your
crazy.
mom misdiagnosed with MS and put in a mental hospital by mistake, and raised by your aunt and uncle, 3 names the first day you were born. I mean, all of this is in the movie. And raised by a black maid and listening to AM radio, and that's where you got your music thing. But I guess my question is, what's depression?
Wow.
What's the difference between loneliness and being alone?
You
always talk
great
about
in my life. What I consider a real blessing is I've never been lonely. I've always felt alone. I feel I fit in nowhere. You know, never anywhere. I feel I fit in nowhere,
lonely?
But I've never been lonely. And I certainly like to be quiet. I'm a very introverted person who has a great facade of not being.
But you do love people.
Yeah,
you like to hang.
Well, I truly love everybody. There's a lot of people I don't like their actions.
Right.
You know, I might like them, but I don't like their actions. And that, of course, they say the same thing about me.
Right.
You know, but you know, I mean, the human being is a bizarre animal, and Mark Twain said there's nothing lower than the human being except the French. And if you're in the music business, it gets to be that way. I mean, like we both say, and everybody we know, it's on any level, it is a brutal business, and you develop some sort of stupid thick skin to get you through. Because, you know, you're going to be slammed no matter what you do. If you're right or wrong, you're going to be slammed. And I admire anybody that gets on stage, whether they're good, bad, or anything. And I just, the taste of people just blows my brain. I don't understand why they would like this and pay money to go to work in some inferno and then pay money to go to these inane shows for $100 and pay for parking. It's just like, you gotta be kidding, you know.
Right.
I would have enjoyed my life on this planet if the people had been alive. You know, that's what Sonny said.
Right.
And
well, you've been called a musical snob. I've been called a musical snob. But what's the difference between a musical snob and somebody that has some discretion over what they really think music should be?
Music to me is like art, man. And what really irritates me is you can't hear good music on the radio. Why can't they play Ray Charles, Bobby Bland, Stravinsky? Why do they play this crud all day? It really affects society. You know, just crud. Music is art. Picasso's still living, Salvador Dali, Peter Bruegel, 600 years old. It's still thriving. It's alive.
Glass today, he's just
but 75. They don't play Bill Monroe on good stations. You know, why can't they play class? You know, why is our art dumped and forgotten immediately? And all they want is soft drink ad music, you know, just modern clothes crap. Put that in there too, but I mean, these clowns that get on TV are 21 years old. Why can't they put on McCoy Tyner, an artist, a true genius, you know?
While they're still
Nat
here,
Coleman.
while they're still alive, you know.
How are they alive? I mean,
no, I'm saying there's people still alive now. The public deserves to hear.
Deserves to
and when
hear,
you hit like
especially
60,
the kids.
The corporate parenthood seems to have duped the whole world into thinking that everything retires. Art never retires.
Art never retires.
It never does
it's
retire.
I look at music, it's got to have a timeless quality to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the saddest thing I think I've ever seen in the music business, Willie Nelson is, you know, he's a saint. Besides being childlike in every way and signing autographs till 6 in the morning and being the nicest guy in the world. What is he, 77, 78 now?
Yeah.
And he was playing on a concert and all these pencil neck geeks came out with hats. They're not here today. This was 10 or 12 years ago. And you have a master right here. And he's opening for somebody who's never done anything. They have a hit on some pencil neck radio.
Right.
You play Willie Nelson every day. You play Merle. You play Johnny Cash, and then put the pencil necks on there.
Right.
But it affects society, and I mean, music is a healing power.
No, you
and
think it's
crazy.
sponsored a lot of it? It's bought.
It's all, we know how the game works.
The game
it's disgusting, man.
And it's working like that in politics too.
In everything, man. Everything is professional wrestling.
Right.
Everywhere you turn is pro wrestling.
Right.
Which I like better than politics or music today.
Right.
At least it's pro wrestling. I mean, they work hard at it.
Exactly.
Those guys work very hard at it.
Exactly.
You know, but the whole world is pro wrestling, man. It's 1984 minus 16.3 or something, or multiplied by pi. It's Brave New Drugs is what it is.
Well, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, do you think music, I know people have lost their charm with live music.
There's cycles.
Do you think that
everything's a cycle, and I can't imagine the lowest ebb getting worse. If we're not at the bottom, I don't want to see the bottom.
Right.
It's like 62 or 63. I mean, it got so bad, it was horrifying, you know, and then there was a renaissance for a good 10 years of creative stuff. Whether you liked it or not, at least it was creative.
Right.
And it just wasn't, you know, the genetic drift stuff, you know, just here, buy this. It's a product, you'll like it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just amazing to me. I mean, well, people are sheep, and they've always been.
Yeah.
And need some people to wake up, you know.
Yeah.
Just wake up, man.
Well,
and every form of music to me is in a box too. Every form of it.
It's genreized.
It's genreized, and put it together, make it flow, man. It's genreized. That's a great word.
It really is.
It really is.
It's sold like soup and cereal, and it's you know, put in categories, and everybody always asks the same question. How do you compare yourself to this person, or describe your sound, or who do you sound like? Well, I don't want to answer that question. I sound like Jeff Mosier.
No, I sound like everybody I've stolen from. Hasn't everybody? I mean, ever since I was 8 years old, I've wanted to be Little Richard, and I've failed miserably. But
well, we're all part of a tradition. I mean, I wouldn't be playing if I hadn't had the opportunity with, you know, that I had with you. It was great. That was the big shift for me, man. And
well, you were ready for the big shift. I'm not going to take credit for anything. It was just time for you to shift, and you did it. You shifted, you know. I didn't do it. Like I say, I never do. I just show up.
Right.
You know, I'm there at the gig. I'm there to play.
Yeah.
I'm there
well, you quit smoking, and how you doing? Do you feel good?
I feel pretty good for an old man. Yeah.
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 You got good energy.
Yeah. Just in the past year, I felt my energy come back.
That's great, and you're still playing a lot. I noticed you were just on the jam crew.
2 or 3 times a week's enough. Yeah. Yeah, that's enough.
But it's good to see you around Atlanta more.
It's good to be around Atlanta more, or wherever I am.
Do you know anything about the film when it anticipated the release date?
March 24th. March 24th and 30th is going to be at the Atlanta Film Festival.
Oh, of
2012. Knocking at your door. Yeah.
The Mayans are wrong, aren't they?
I don't know anything.
You don't know anything?
All I can do is live in the now.
You think we'll make it to New Year's?
I don't have a clue.
Okay.
Folly. Prediction is folly.
Okay.
Basically, it's fun, but it's basically folly.
Well, let me look
Unless
at my little
Joe
scroll of
Zambie,
notes and make sure I didn't leave out anything.
Well, if you ask Joe Zambie, would he make a prediction for the new year, or what does he say?
Yeah.
What we asked him, do you make predictions, and he said, not for the future. He said, I'm leaving Pensacola because the traffic's horrible, so I'm moving to Atlanta.
Okay, I gotta have one more question before we
Thousands.
go.
94 minutes, 13 it equals.
But, well, man, I appreciate you doing this because I think that a lot of people are going to be reminded of why they got into the music business and how powerful music is. And,
it's still the most powerful thing on the planet, or I've never seen anything more powerful.
Me neither.
Actually, I feel, prediction, I feel everything is going to start moving into a feminine direction, a lot more acoustic in every field, I think things need to, just like George Sr. said, need to be more gentle.
Kinder and gentler.
Kinder and gentler, is that it? But I don't know if people are sick of seeing the crap they see, and I don't know if they care. I mean, how can they just sit there and go, I'm not good, you're not good, nobody's good, but at least we're real to ourselves.
Right.
Or the people that are real to themselves, I want to see them, And also the radio thing, man, that just still blows my mind. If you got a Picasso painting, show it to an 8-year-old. Show, here's Salvador Dali and Monet. But they're not showing them this stuff.
I know.
It blows my mind.
Yeah. As a father of 3 kids, I can attest to the fact that
I'm sure
that is true.
Yeah, but you've showed them
if they
some
don't learn
crap.
it from the parents, then
you've taught them some stuff. I know you. Or you presented them with it and made them have a choice.
I have, but I mean, I'm just talking about the average person who, kids that are growing up nowadays are, it's they have to really. They've got the ability to search for everything, but they don't have the desire. They can find anything in a search engine.
What's amazing?
What
they
people
are so much smarter than I ever was.
Exactly.
Smart is the word.
But not curious.
Not curious, nor do they have the wisdom. None. There's no wisdom thing in their computer or file. They left out that chip. Maybe when they hit 30, they have wisdom. Maybe our parents said those pencil necks didn't have any wisdom. When we were 60 and 13 or whatever.
Right.
But we had a street sense, I feel. There was a street sense of wisdom, and you had to have it.
Right.
Because there was really nothing, quote, to do then. You played baseball or music or, but there were 3 TV and there were no computers or, I remember when I was young, I was 8, and to show you how things have changed, at 6 o'clock, they would cut off the news and say, 6:15, we're going to go eat supper. We'll see you back at 6:30. And all the networks would go off for 15 minutes. Unbelievable.
And there was a test pattern for a while.
Test pattern. Do you remember that? You were probably not old enough, but you were probably 4.
I was born in 56. Yeah.
56, yeah. This was 55, yeah. That's amazing how much that has changed.
Yeah.
Do you know the 6 capitals west of Los Angeles?
No.
Does he?
You told me just 2 weeks ago, so I don't want to give it away.
We won't answer.
I'd like to thank Jim Weinberg from North Beach Media for providing an opportunity for this. And it was great.
Only 2.
Only 2.
Yeah.
No eye contact.
No eye contact.
And thanks a lot, man.
Thank you, sir. It was fun doing it.